Good morning, and welcome to the Q&A session revolving around reopening Pinkerton Academy for the fall of 2020 for the 2020-2021 school year. This session is being recorded, and we will post it afterwards for families that are not able to be here with us now on this session to get it, and then also to others to be able to go back and view again later on. So there were many questions that were submitted through the live QA email, so we thank you for that, and I'm going to go through as many of them as I can in the next hour. There were a lot of questions that were along the same theme, so the question that you asked may not be directly answered, but the theme of your question will be answered with as a group with other questions there. So what I'll start off with is how did we get here, where we are with our reopening plans. So over the past 3 months, a lot of work has been done to create 3 options for safely reopening this upcoming school year. The safety of students, faculty, and staff has been considered throughout the process, while also realizing the mission of Pinkerton Academy and working to educate our students as best as possible. When developing the 3 plans, we wanted to do it in a manner that allows for us to be able to shift from one to another depending upon the status of our area. This past week, the decision was made to start in the hybrid setting. However, that does not mean that that is set in stone and we will be in hybrid for the entire year or even through the first quarter of the year. For us, our plans were being developed well in advance of the recommendations from the New Hampshire Department of Education, and the basis for our document was created after reviewing guidance and recommendations from the Department of Education from states across the country, as well as the CDC, DHHS, and New Hampshire DHHS guidance. There is a strong possibility that we could be in all 3 plans at some point this year, and the way that they were created, it allows us for the flexibility for this to occur. In the plan, you can find a decision matrix for going between the 3 plans. That is one point of information for making the decision. We have situations that could warrant from going from one to another based on the number of new cases per 100,000 in Rockingham County in our area for the rolling 7-day average. But again, that's one point, a data point that will help to dictate and make that decisions. And we could have situations where the numbers fall in a different category, but based on other information and other things, we will shift plans. The document has been approved and worked on is a living document. It has been updated and will continue to be updated as the pandemic evolves and the guidance and recommendation changes from our health officials and others as well. As more information is learned about the virus, our plan will reflect that. And by no means is our work done with this, but we do feel that our plan has covered all of the areas and will continue to do so as we move forward. Just like all of you have done, spending countless hours determining what's best for you and your families and that, we've done the same here for what we feel is best for our employees and for our students in order to be able to meet the educational needs of this upcoming year. So as I mentioned before, there are many questions, so I'm gonna highlight some of the major themes, go through some of that, and talk about as much detail as I can in the time that we have allotted here today, and then we'll look at what we have for possibility of next steps with further questions that need to be answered and asked. And that in the reopening document, you can see that our school calendar has been updated. We do have a few changes to it. Our start date was moved back one day because the state has allowed 3 professional development days to be done prior to our Christmas break for working on what this year will be like. So what we did was we took one of those prior to where we were going to be starting this year, and then the other 2 we sprinkled in 2 different weeks in September, as opposed to doing them all 3 right at the beginning. And the reason why we did that is so that it allows us to work, to have professional development, to have everything ready to go, to start the year, to go through a week, see what works, what doesn't work, what are things that we need to work on within the classes, have a day to be able to work on professional development for that piece, go through another week. And then in that week there, following that is Labor Day, so there will be a 4-day week. And then after that, we'll have another professional development day where we can continue to work on the things that are going on and what works and work on areas that aren't working as well as we want. And then have another 4-day week. So that's how we will start the school year. The other piece with it is if you look at the calendar on the 27th to 28th, you'll notice them as freshman, junior, sophomore, senior days. For the start of every year, we've always brought our freshmen onto campus for a freshman orientation. Last year, we brought our sophomores in that afternoon for a sophomore transition so that they were able to get on the campus and to go around their schedules and see what it was as they transitioned out of the academy building to the main campus for all their classes. We felt that this year, based on the pandemic and where we ended last spring, last year, and where we're headed with this year, that it was important to bring all of our classes back onto campus separately to review many different things with them. For our freshmen, obviously, it's their first time here on campus as a student. So going through many of the important things that we have with the freshman orientation will continue. For our sophomores through seniors, for many of them, that will be their first time back on campus. So bringing them back as a class so that they have that opportunity to come back on campus, to reacclimate them to campus, we feel is a very important social emotional piece in helping with them to become reacclimated for the school year. As part of that, we will work with them to review new protocols, procedures, policies, et cetera, with them. For example, reviewing the importance of hand washing, how hand washing is supposed to be done, the use of hand sanitizer, mask wearing, expectations with mask wearing across campus during the day, and the procedures along those lines. So that's one of the first changes with it. Another change with the calendar is you can see that there are days that are designated RL. Those are predetermined designated remote learning days that we have on the campus. And those are done for 2 reasons. There's one in October, and then there's one in April for the school day SAT. Our current senior class last spring was supposed to have taken the school day SAT as part of their accountability test, but also the SAT exam for them that they could use to gain college acceptance. With them missing it this past spring, it has been rescheduled for this fall. So in October, they will have the opportunity for them to take the school day SAT, and for the remaining 3 classes, they'll be in a remote learning day so that we will not lose the educational day for the rest of our students. The same thing will happen in the spring. In the spring, the SAT accountability test will be given to the junior class, and so the other 3 classes on that day will be in a remote learning day so that they will still have their educational access on that day as well. In years past, with the junior state accountability test, we've had to do that on a professional development day. So we had to have students come in on a non-school day to take the test. And then we also lost a professional development day that was very important for our faculty and staff to work on things throughout the school year and that. So those are two examples of the remote learning day. The other ones you can see are tied to days right before Thanksgiving, the Christmas break, February vacation, and days before and after that. And what that will allow us to do is will allow us to have a deeper clean across our campus. We've predetermined those days based on typical cold and flu seasons and when they start to hit and when they're in full swing, so that we have the ability to take time to fully go through, do a deeper clean of our campus, open it up, let it breathe, let it air out, so that way we're able to have it as best as possible for our faculty, staff, and students. The other part, when you look at those days too, with holidays and that, we don't actually have as much time as one may think where people are working to be able to do that as well. So those are predetermined remote learning days where students will be in the remote setting for those days. A couple other pieces with the school calendar. If you notice too, in what would typically be the end of Q1 or Q3, they are listed as PR days. Those are when we'll have progress reports. When we looked at the school calendar and what was going to be there for our students as we go through, the schedule, no matter what setting we're in, would not be the same for every student. The number of days that they could potentially be on campus or be in class between the red and white days. So for those quarter marks, there would be inequities for access there, and then looking at what assessments could occur in each of the quarters could artificially inflate or deflate grades or put things in a different spot with that. And we felt for the learning process to have them be semesters. So you start at the beginning day one and you go to the end of semester one for it to occur, and that would give the best snapshot of the grade and what the student is doing. So at those progress report grades, it simply will be a progress report where the grade stands at that point in time, and then it will carry on for the rest of the semester. At progress reports, those are the dates in which eligibility will be determined for athletics and extracurriculars that have eligibility requirements to them. The other piece that you'll notice is in January at the end of semester one, typically at that point there, you'll see a week of exams based on not sure what plan we'll be in at that point in time. What we're doing is we're creating flexibility for our exam period so that way assessments can occur in the setting that is best for them to occur. So instead of having 4 days with 2 exams per day, there'll be a 2-week window for which the assessments will occur. That allows for flexibility in the classroom to determine what's the best way and when to assess the student learning and to show that the competencies have been achieved for that. As we draw closer to that, that information and time will be shared with those in each particular class. As we get into a couple of things, one important piece is masks. As you can see, I am wearing my mask here today as we do this. Masks are required to be worn when you are on campus at all times. So in order for a student to be able to participate in on-campus learning this year, they will be required to wear a mask when they are inside our classroom, in our buildings, in our classrooms, when they are outside. If they are able to, at that point in time, maintain the 6 feet of social distance, that's when the mask can be removed. If a student is eating lunch, they'll be able to remove their mask to be able to eat. If they have a drink of water, at that point in time, they'll be able to remove their masks to be able to have a drink of water as well at that point in time. But otherwise, masks are required to be worn throughout the time that they're here on the campus. And that is through the science that's there to show that it helps to protect the spread of the virus and keeps us all safe. So it is a safety reason for us to require the mask to be worn, and we feel it is a very important piece of keeping everyone safe as possible here on campus this academic year. We do know that we have students that read lips, that they're visually hearing impaired, things like that. So for the situations and classes that they're in, we have purchased masks that have the clear across the front of the lips so that those students will be able to read the lips of the faculty or staff members that are in that class there. So we've looked into that and secured those as well for that. So a lot of the questions revolved around the possibility of being in all 3 options this year. How do we get to the point where we could be fully open, or how do we get to the point where we would go from what we're currently in the hybrid into the remote setting? So in the document, when you get towards the end, is one of the decision matrix for what would trigger going from one plan to the next. So in it, you can see if you click on the link and go to the map, it narrows down to what the rolling 7-day average is of new cases per 100,000 for each county in the state of New Hampshire. It looks at each county across the entire United States, but we will be focusing in on Rockingham County and the areas that we are in for the number and looking at that place, at those numbers there. And that is one key data point that we will use as we determine which plan that we are in. You know, currently in our area, that the numbers are good. I think we're doing a good job with that. And over time, that number may decrease. It was down to 1.2, 1.4 a week ago. It could drop below 1, and at that point in time, we would look at that and then also take in other key data points to see where we are with everything. At this point in time, if in the next couple of weeks that number were to drop below 1, that would be an indicator that we could go to full reopening. But based on other things and other data points and other pieces like that, we may not go right to full opening. We may stay in the hybrid. That would be most likely where we would stay until there are other pieces of information and it's sustained a little bit longer than to be able to make a shift at that point in time. And then the same is true if you look at that. Once you get to the number in that guidance, there is 10 new cases per 100,000 for the rolling average. That would then trigger remote learning for more students, and that would be an indicator as it starts to near there that we could be possibly looking to make a shift. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to hit 10 for us to go to remote. There could be some cases or some things that happen with students or people on campus that would dictate that we go to remote before the number in our area reaches 10. So it's one piece of guidance that allows us to look at for when we would shift between one plan to the other. The other piece with it, as you see in the introduction letter in the document, it shows that there are dates that we are going to concretely look at the plan and where we are and if there's a possibility to shift. So we're looking at it daily, and we're going to look to see to make sure that what we are in makes the best sense on a daily basis. But we have the dates in there to be points that it's going to be a formal look and a shift. So if we play it out and just a what if scenario, if the numbers of cases in our area get better and they drop below 1 and things are really trending really well, that everything is well under control and looks like, gets to 0.9, drops to 0.7, things like that. What we would do is we would look at that first initial date, which is October 1st, there, look at that and say, well, at that point in time, that would be a point where we could make a decision. Okay, based on all the data we have, everything, it makes sense for us to fully reopen. So on October 1st, we would officially go from Plan B to Plan A, based on the data and other information that is there and is out there. It doesn't mean that at any point in time in between those dates that we couldn't shift, but if we're looking to make a shift to go from like a Plan B to a Plan A, that would be more typical to occur on one of those dates. To go from a Plan B to a Plan C, we don't have to wait to that particular date to make the shift if the data and everything is indicating that we should be going to a more remote setting for the majority of our students. That we can make at any point in time based on all the data and everything that is out there. So a couple of things with the schedule and what we're in now. With it, we're currently starting in the hybrid for Plan B. When we look at it, when we looked at what we were tasked with and what we were posed with, we came up with these options, knowing that at some point in time we will be fully reopened and we'll have all students on campus. So how do we create a schedule that will allow us to go from a situation where we have a remote setting or a hybrid setting and then shift possibly between either one of those to eventually getting to a full everyone here on campus? Or if we were to start with fully everyone here on campus and had to shift to a hybrid or remote, how are we designing a schedule that's going to work across the three without having to redo schedules and change things on students? So that way it could be seamless, it could be done in a quick turnaround, and there would be as minimal educational disruption as possible for our students and for our teachers and staff as well. So as we did that and we're building the schedule, we looked at all of our classes and looked at ways that we could cap the number of students in a class. So we capped all of our classes at 24 with the exception of outside of some particular classes like a band or a chorus that has more space and more numbers in those programs. But for the majority of our classes, we capped them at 24, which then gave us the flexibility that if we had to be in the hybrid, we could set it so that there was 50%, 12 and 12 that could be in each cohort within that class, so that we wouldn't be changing a student's schedule to go from a full to a hybrid, or from a hybrid to a full in order to make their schedules work and have them have the opportunities in that. So that's how we design the schedule, and we're going through working with it. When we started to determine what students were going into which cohort, what we wanted to make sure that we did was we wanted to make sure that we kept all the siblings together, so that way for transportation purposes, parents and guardians would be able to count that their children would be going to school on the same day, and then they would be remote on the same day, so that they had that. And then also looking at what makes sense and what works for all their classes across campus. So as we were doing it, we started off with just a pure alpha split to see where that put us. And that put us in a really good spot as far as the vast majority of our classes, and left us with a minimal number of course sections that didn't fit the 12-12, and gave us a starting point that we were able to work to be able to shift and get those numbers to a point that makes sense and works for the running of our schedule and being able to educate our students. So that's how students are either in cohort 1 or they're in cohort 2. So as we're going through with the hybrid, we looked at now what works and what makes the best sense for bringing students on in a way that's going to make sense for our students and our families to know what days they're coming onto campus for their on-campus learning, and what days they are in the remote setting for their remote learning piece of it. So as we went through with our schedule, we had designed it as a red-white. We have eight periods that are split over 2 days, so we have 4 blocks on each day. What we wanted to do with that is we wanted to minimize the number of passing times and movement across campus throughout the day, so that there are less potential interactions outside of the classroom setting, and less movement and less interactions with others throughout the day to work on minimizing things. So that's how we ended up with the red, white, 4 and 4, which is very similar to what we ended last year with in the remote setting. So then as we did it, we had red 1 days, we had red 2 days, white 1 days, white 2 days, and we looked at a variety of options with how could we run that schedule there. And we found some that worked well and others that didn't work as well, some that were confusing and others were a little bit less confusing. So simply put, the easiest way for me to explain it right now is if whatever cohort you're in, you're on campus for 2 days, you're remote for 2 days, then you're on for 2, then you're remote for 2. So it's an alternating, you're on campus for 2 days, then you'll be remote for 2 days. And that's the schedule that will carry on for the year, or for the length of time that we're in the hybrid setting. So if you're in cohort 1, you're on campus for 2 days, and then you'll be remote for 2 days. If you're in cohort 2, you'll be remote for 2 days and then on campus for 2 days. And that will be the alternating pattern for the length of time that we're in the hybrid setting. So initially, when we start those first couple of weeks, the first 3 weeks where we have 2 professional development days and we have Labor Day in there, for those first 3 weeks, we will have 2 days of the students being on campus, and then 2 days where they'll be in the remote setting for each cohort. The other piece with doing the cohorts and the way that we have set it up there is that if we're in the hybrid setting for an extended period of time and we get to the point where we have to go with what's been asked about a yellow day or something along those lines, or have a day where between cohorts we need to be able to do some extended cleaning in that. The 2 on, 2 off day allows us then to split it so that we have Monday, Tuesday, a yellow or cleaning day on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, like that. So it gives us some flexibility that we're able to work on and do those things should those needs arise like that. We did look at options about setting days, saying cohort 1 was only going to come in on Monday and Tuesdays, cohort 2 only on Thursdays and Fridays. But there were many different reasons why, one of which is Monday holidays. There's 7 of them throughout the academic year. So right off the bat, if we just said it was Monday and Tuesday, then cohort 1 would be losing 7 days, or for those 7 weeks, we would have to make a change that would be out of the normal and disrupt the rhythm there. With that then, and then also we would have that 1 day that either in the middle or at the end that we didn't have either students coming in, or we were trying to go every other day or every other week with bringing them in, and it just added layers of confusion and didn't give us as much flexibility should different needs arise throughout the year. So that's why we're in the setting that we're in for the hybrid, and the part of the rationale and the reasoning why we got to that with it as well. So for the yellow day, at this point in time, we are not scheduling a yellow day. We're going to start the year with the alternating red-white days because we do want to maximize the amount of time that we have with students in the classroom, depending upon where things may shift and may go throughout the year with that. Then there are also other educational needs for many of our students that it's important for them to be in the classes, especially at the start of the year, to be able to gain the knowledge, to get back on track with different things throughout, so that the yellow days are not part of the schedule at this point, but it doesn't mean that it's not something that could occur with something later on during the year. We will resend our final school calendar out shortly as a reminder, so that way you have the current up to date. It is also on our website as well. So all of the plans and all of our information, everything is going to be located in our website. School calendar will still be on the school calendar portion, and but we will also have it linked in the COVID-19 section on our website. So if you do go to our website, and you have been in the past, you're familiar with the COVID-19 button that's on the homepage. So if you click on that, that's where all of our information will be shared and posted. All the things that get sent out, there'll be the links for those letters, that information there. So if you're searching for it, you can go there to find it, and it will have the current, most up-to-date information there with it. So a question was about if students. So let me talk about what a couple of things we're going to do next, and I'll cover to the other questions you have. So what we are going to do is later this week is send out a question for every one of our students and their families. So now that we have said that we're going to start in the hybrid setting, that we're going to start with plan B, and that are you going to send your child to campus for the days that they would be coming to campus, or would you like them to remain in the fully remote setting? So we're asking you to let us know what your choice is right off the bat. It does not lock you in that that's the choice you have for the entire year. If things change and you decide that you are sending your child and you want them to go remote, or they're remote and then things clear up and you want to be able to send them to on campus for a portion, you will have the ability to do that, and there'll be some notification and communication pieces with that. The other piece that we're going to ask you in there is, how will you be transporting your students to campus every day? We want to know, would like to know if you're going to ride the bus, or potentially ride the bus, so that way we can share that with our sending towns as they're developing the transportation routes and pickups and drop-offs for students. Also, if you're going to be driving your students to campus and dropping them off, and also about if your student is eligible for getting a parking pass and being able to drive and park on campus, will that be an option that you will choose to them? The third piece that we're going to ask you for information about is the technology piece, and what do you and your child have for the ability to bring a device to campus? Last spring, we handed out over 600 Chromebooks to families and to students that needed them. We have a large number of Chromebooks that we are going to, again, give out to students. But we're asking any family that has a device that will allow their student to come and bring their device to school to let us know that that is what they have to begin with, so that way we're able to hand out Chromebooks to anyone that doesn't have a device. We want all of our students to have a device this year, so that way they have their own device in class, so that way there's not a sharing of Chromebooks or anything between classes or between students. So we're minimizing another touch point between individuals. We have nearly enough for every student to begin with, and we have ordered more, so that way we will have enough. But if just in case that we don't get all those in stock, because there's been some delays in shipping of those, we're asking that anyone that has a device and they're able to bring their own device, that they would bring their own device, so that way we're able to get a device into every student's hand at the beginning of school, and then as the additional ones come in, we will give those to the students to have the device, so that way everyone will have their own device and they'll be able to use it whether they're on campus or in the remote setting. So that's a piece of information that we'll get out, and we'll ask that you turn around to us so that we have that knowledge and we're able to continue to do some more planning with those things there. So the question is if some parents choose the full remote option, will this create an opportunity for students that are willing to return to campus full time? So if more choose remote, there will be the possibility that there are spots, but it doesn't mean that we're able to say, okay, this number of people have chosen fully remote, so now everyone is able to come onto campus every day. So based on the way the schedule is designed, there is the flexibility for students to be in the remote or to be on the on-campus in the hybrid setting. So we're maintaining it with that. So if a student chooses remote, the class that they're scheduled in is going to remain the class that they're scheduled in, and that there's not going to be a new class that's designed that's just going to fully be a remote class. So in the remote setting, the schedule is set. You can see there when the class meets, what time, what day it will be, and that's the time and day that the class will meet, and the instruction and the interactions with the teacher will occur. So if your class is period A, it starts at 7:15 on just to pick a random day. Next Wednesday will be the first day for it. Then at 7:15, that's when that class period meets. So if as part of that class there's a live streaming direct instruction portion of it, if I'm in a remote setting, I would log in to that live stream. I'd be able to watch and to interact with the teacher through that there. Assignments and everything would be loaded through Google Classroom and other places like that, so I'd be able to get the assignments and the work that is going to occur there. So as being in the remote, it would just be a different way of viewing and interacting than being on the on-campus. So the cohort or student for that class will be the same, whether you choose the remote setting or you choose to be able to partake in the hybrid and coming onto campus. So just going in through a couple other, I talked about the siblings scheduled for the same day for transportation. Yes. There's some others about neighbors and friends being placed in the same cohorts as well. That is not something that just because we're my friend and I doesn't mean we're going to be able to be placed in the same cohort, because we're looking at the wide range and meeting the needs of everything class and schedule wise. We're not able to just arbitrarily place friends in the same cohort so that they're going the same day. So there are some that it will have naturally worked out, and then other cases where it will not work out. So friends being the same cohort. Choosing the model. So some questions about choosing the model for the students. The flexibility to switch between the hybrid and full. Can you start in one and switch if it wasn't working? So yes, so you are. So there's no magical cutoff day saying like you have to make a decision and by this date you have to decide and you're stuck in it. So if you say that you're going to start in we're starting in the hybrid, and you say that you're going to start sending your child, and for you that's not working after a few weeks and you want them to be fully remote, you will have the ability to then to tell us that you're going to have your child be fully remote, and vice versa is true. If it's fully remote and then you feel after a couple of weeks that you would like your child to come onto campus for the on-campus portion of their time and their day, then you would be able to do that. We'll be asking for 48 hours minimum notice with that, just so that we have planning purposes and notifications on campus with students that were not coming, that they are coming, to make sure that we have all of the additional forms and checkoffs as well too, with the self-monitoring and all that. Question is it possible to come in for only specific classes, whether it's math, CTE, phys ed, and do the rest remote? So the quick answer is yes. However, if you come onto campus for only one particular class, so say I come in for my math class, but when that class period ends, my next class scheduled is my English class. That time starts, right after the passing time. So as I'm traveling back home, that class has already begun. And then I would be responsible for the class time that I'm missing there. So is it possible to come in for a particular class and only that class? Yes. However, if by doing so you miss class time of another class, then that you'll be then responsible for making sure that you get all the material and everything for that class as well. So you're not limiting that it's not feasible and not possible, but it could be a situation where something like that were to occur. So then the question, again, when must be the decision about hybrid or remote? So we're gonna email the end of this week here, and we're gonna ask that we're gonna have responses next week for the initial. So that way we just have knowledge then, and we know what it is that we're looking at for numbers and for what the choice is there. Question about will special ed and 504 services be available for remote only students? And yes. So if you choose remote only for your child and they are a special ed student or they're 504 student, the services that they have and are required by their plans and that we will work with them to still provide those services. Obviously, being in a remote setting is different than being in an on-campus setting. So as we go through and work with that, we will work with each family and each student to make sure that we're working and helping as best as we can with those pieces as well. And then the other part about remote learning was with delivery of content and curriculum in that method and in that time. So there is flexibility created for our faculty and how they're going to deliver the content. So the time of the class meeting is locked into the schedule, but how they do it, it could be through live streaming direct instruction. They could have recorded a video of themselves explaining or found a video of explaining the topic or the content that it is, and they could upload that. And then they could have a portion of time where they're going to have the ability to interact with the students to answer questions, whether it's through a Google Meet or a Zoom breakout session or through email or something along those lines. So there's not if you're in the remote setting, this is going to be this way for every class, because every class is different. It has some unique opportunities and challenges through it. So what it is that how they'll be delivering will be different depending upon what it is and where they are within the curriculum. So for one class, it may be a particular way this week, but as they advance through the curriculum, some things may change and there may be some different components and different pieces with that there. So they may be working on something different where they're getting ready for a debate. So the information may be shared and students may be doing research and working on it, and the teacher will be checking in with them through the submissions of a paper and giving feedback, or through having a meeting and just saying, okay, yes, it looks like you're on track, or no, these are some other areas that you need to work with. So some questions that revolved around absences. If you're out sick or on quarantine, can students participate remotely? Yes. So on days when the student isn't feeling well, and we're asking that anytime your student is showing any kind of symptoms, is feeling under the weather and that, please do not send them to school. We really want to emphasize that if they're under the weather, if they're feeling sick, they have any kind of symptom like that, if they have a temperature and that, do not send them to school. We don't want them, if they're feeling sick and they have something, that they come to school and then they spread it to others. So it's really important that if they are sick like that they do stay home. And the way it's set up is they'll still be able to participate remotely. So then they'll be able to log into their classroom. They'll be able to see what's going on that day. If there's a live streaming session or if there's a video to watch, they'll be able to do that. They'll be able to participate and to do the work as well for that there. Attendance policy is in effect for the year. We did revise our attendance policy for this upcoming school year, and that is in our student planner with that. And that attendance policy was designed and worked on when we were in our full brick and mortar everyday meeting with all students being able to come to campus. Now with the situation that we're in, where we're starting off, we're looking at the hybrid setting, where there's a potential that we could be going to the remote setting, or we're also eventually maybe getting back to a full on-campus for everyone setting. There are a lot of different changes there, and with us being very, very pointed and asking that if you have a student, your child that's not feeling well and that they stay home, the attendance policy that we have put in place for this upcoming year will start at the next school year. So that attendance policy will not be in place. We do have the ability for students to be able to access it so that they are going to be able to maintain getting their education, whether they're able to be on campus or not. So that is the case there. We will be sharing how we will be tracking attendance and the communication that we will have with you with regard to that. Part of what we've looked at and we've learned from last spring and in years past and everything like that is, especially starting out when we're in the hybrid here, if we're in the hybrid and your child is in cohort 1 and it's cohort 1's day to come to campus, and you put them on the bus, or they get in their car to drive to school, or and you've headed off to work, or that your expectation is that they've arrived here on campus safely and that they're here. So part of what we do is when we track attendance daily to see who's here and who's not here, if your child's not here and you're expecting that they are here, we want to make sure that we've properly taken attendance and then communicated with families that their student is not here. So that way, that, okay, your child did not come to campus for whatever reason that day, but they were supposed to be here, and we can be in communication along those lines there. The other question about DNPs, we worked through many different pieces with that, and we had heartache on both sides with what we were doing with tracking with DNPs and what it meant for families for do not participate in the remote setting this past year. I think we've learned a lot from each other with that piece there. We're not going to have the same formal DNP process. We are going to have a couple of other pieces in place to track and to show that students have participated in the class, so that way you'll see them being marked as present or present remote, absent remote, going through those different codes. And we will have, once all that is all cleaned up, and you'll see it as this is the attendance policy or procedures for the 2020-2021 school year. It will be shared with you so that you can see it and what the expectation is on our end, what the expectation is for the students on their end, and what it is for you and as a family on your end as well. Some of the other general protocols as far as cleaning and other pieces are concerned. So our our building and ground staff has done an excellent job throughout the summer and going through the campus, and then beginning to get it ready for this upcoming school year. They are going to be responsible for cleaning campus daily. So every classroom and every office will be cleaned daily, and then during the day there are some other high frequent touch points that will be cleaned on a more frequent basis, whether it's bathrooms or door handles, hallways, things along those lines that can be cleaned during class time by our building and ground staff here on campus. All of the cleaning protocols that we have, the cleaners that we use and everything meet the guidelines that have been set forth by CDC and DHHS, so that we are following the recommendations that they have for cleaning. And then we're also using the cleaners and the chemicals to clean that they have recommended in a state that work for fighting the coronavirus. Positive case on campus, student, staff, what will happen communicating with that. So if the recommendation and the guidance from the state with that is if we have a case or a probable case in that we work with DHHS for what the next steps are with communication and notifying students, staff, and communicating with that there. There are HIPAA and privacy laws that we have to make sure that we follow and enforce, but wherever possible, whenever we can and as quickly as we can, if there is a positive case on campus, we will notify our community that there was. And then when we look at specifically who are individuals that were interacted with that positive case, in any way that we can interact and notify them, we will, and we'll work with DHHS on the proper notification process and with those individuals, so that way that they are aware of it. The enforcing masks, hand washing, etc. As I stated from the beginning, masks are mandatory. So if your child is going to refuse to wear a mask while coming on here on campus, then they are going to have to be in the remote setting. Masks are required; they are mandatory to be worn. If there is a medical reason for why a mask cannot be worn, then we'll need medical documentation, and we will work with each individual family and student in those cases to make sure that we're working through that in a manner that is as safe as possible for them and for our employees as well that are working with those students. Hand washing, we are going to review and go over the proper hand washing with students, have constant reminders about washing hands, have signage all across campus about washing hands with that. But we also have hand sanitizer stations. We have them in every classroom. We will have them in all of our CAFs, and we'll have them in other high traffic areas, so that way they are able for students to be able to use that at a constant basis. We're also going to review with them the proper putting on and removing of masks as well. Wearing a mask is not an easy thing. It takes some getting used to, but also we want to make sure that we're talking with students about the proper way to take a mask off and how to put it back on, so that way they're not opening up their masks to other viruses or other things like that as well. Other questions about enforcing social distances and changing of classes and coming to and leaving campus. Obviously, with the number of people on campus, and then excuse me, looking at how do we maintain social distance throughout. We have gone through our campus and looked at it, and this is part of what we'll do on those first 2 initial days, is have traffic flow on campus for one-way movement between the buildings and then within the buildings. So we'll have entrances to buildings and then going down a hallway one way, up a stairs one way, down a hallway a different way, and downstairs in different ways there too. So all of our campuses and buildings will be designed in that manner, so that way traffic will flow in one-way patterns. So we won't have, we'll limit the number of times that there are people going in two directions facing each other. So everyone should be facing in the same direction as they're walking across. We'll have signage again about what social distancing is, marking off 6 feet of space, so that way there's clear indicators for that, and reminders about what 6 feet means throughout campus with that. Again, as we have people that are coming onto campus and leaving campus, and that again will be the same reminders and same markings throughout campus, and then also having faculty, staff, employees across different areas in campus at the points where people are coming onto campus, and that as just reminders about making sure that there's 6 feet of social distance is being followed and used. And the important piece is that masks are worn too. So as soon as they come onto campus, the mask needs to be on. The transportation, for if they're taking a bus, working with the sending towns, that they're requiring, the bus companies will be requiring masks be worn while they're on bus. So as soon as this child gets on the bus, they should be having their mask on and wearing it for the ride in. So when they get off the bus, the mask should already be on. If you're dropping your child off, then as soon as they are going to step out of their car, before they do that, they should have their mask on before they step out and then come onto campus. And then if a child drives to campus, then as soon as they park their car and put it on, they should put their mask on before they get out of their car to walk on campus, especially if they're going to be around some others as well. With the parking, for student parking on campus, we have gone across our student parking and looked at all of our spaces that we have and the parking lots that we have, and how can we maximize the number of spots available for students for that. So we have opened it up to all of our seniors. We had juniors that had signed up for the lottery and looked to give them all of the ability to purchase a parking pass. We're looking at the rest of the juniors that were on the wait list there to be able to give them the ability to purchase a spot, and then we will continue down to, if there are spots available for any sophomores that have a license and a vehicle to be able to drive to campus as well. The tricky part with all of that is, we are starting in the hybrid setting. So if we do offer parking passes for students, yes, we will have, if there's half attendance, so there'd be spots available. But then when we get to the point where we could be opening up and having everyone on campus, if we then through the hybrid have sold more parking passes than spots are available, we will then have to go to students who have been driving to campus and restrict them from driving to campus. So that's just one piece that we're working out, and we want to make sure that we work all the way through before telling a student that they can drive to campus, then to have it only at some point later in the year say, you can now no longer drive to campus because everyone's coming to campus. So we understand that it's important, and people want to know, and both families and students about that there, but we want to just make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row with that, because the last thing we want to do is tell a child, tell a family that you can no longer drive because we miscalculated a few things there. As far as masks are concerned, cloth or the disposable ones are ones that are fine. We have gone out and we have purchased 3 masks for all of our students. So we will have 3 cloth masks that we will distribute to our students, so that way every student has a cloth mask that they're able to wear to school. We do recommend that every student not only have the mask that they're wearing, but also have an additional mask with them in case they have to change the mask during the middle of the day. and they are cloth masks, so you are able to wear them. We have secured disposable masks as well, so that way, if by chance you drop your child off and they forgot their mask for the day, that we do have some on campus that they're able to get as well, so that they are able to stay in school and for the day and have their mask on there as well. Questions about lunch procedure? Our lunches will be in the cafeteria. As far as lunches and breakfast will be served to the caf. So students will go there if they are looking to purchase breakfast or lunch. In our cafs, our tables are being taken out and desks are being put in that are going to be all 6 feet apart from each other. So that way they're socially distanced within there. And between the spaces in the cafs, the Shepherd Auditorium, utilizing spaces like the lobby of the Stockbridge Theater. In the Stockbridge Theater, we have enough seating and space for our students in the hybrid setting to be able to eat lunch in that area. So they would be going to those places for their lunch. So if they brought their lunch, they could just go to the designated lunch cafeteria or area, and they would be able to eat their lunch. If they are purchasing a lunch, then what we're working on is a process through they have the ability to pre-order lunch so that it can be touchless and contactless for they going in and picking up their lunch and then finding a place to eat it. Or if they've decided right before lunch that they would like to purchase a lunch, going through the line to be able to do that, and keeping it as safe and as possible for all of us involved with that. Our grading has not changed. We are still grading in the same manner in which we have graded in the past. Our grades, the one thing that there is the change is I mentioned going from quarters to semesters, so we won't have our quarter grades. We'll just have that progress report check in there, but our grading will start day one and we'll run to the end of semester one. We'll have our midterm or final assessment, and then semester two will go from start semester two to the end, and then the final midterm not midterm at the end of semester two, but the final exam at the end of semester two with that. So that will be our method and policy with grading for this upcoming year. The SATs, I did mention about the 2 school day SAT piece that we're going to be offering for our seniors this fall and juniors in the spring. The College Board has contacted us about offering SATs on the weekends, and we are working through that procedure and that process. They are looking at what it is that we're able to do and offer for students to be able to take the Saturday exam as well, because we know that that is important for our students, an important piece for them to be able to take and to do, but we also want to make sure that we're doing it in a manner that's going to be safe and responsible. We don't want to do something that's going to hurt them there. IEP and 504 services in general, how will they be provided? So we'll follow the plans that are there, and we're going to do everything that we can as close to normal as possible. If they're in the hybrid setting, it will present some challenges for some of the plans and that, but as we've looked at each one of those and what are some of the processes with it, and what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that they're implemented and follow through. We're looking at the ways that we can provide those services. So there are some that will be done in a virtual setting. There are some that will be done in the in-person setting. So if we look at it and go through that, depending upon the schedule and how it falls, for some of those students that require some of those services, it may just mean a change in when it happens and when it occurs and follow up for it. So we are aware of the importance of it and the need for it and how it will benefit our students and the successes that they're looking to achieve. So we're going to continue to work on those pieces. Finish up on a few more things in the last few minutes that we have here. Activities and special classes. So certain classes like CTE classes that are double period. So traditionally they've been AB, DE, et cetera, like that. So for some of those CTE classes in that have been that double period, if you look at and when you get access to your child's schedule, you'll see that those classes will end up being still the AB, so they'll be meeting every day. So when we determined what's best, that was one of the things with the schedule, is we determined what was best for that particular class or that group of classes. It made sense to spread them out so that they were meeting every day, as opposed to a longer period of time on one day and then not the next day. So that was one of the challenging pieces as we were developing a schedule, is how do we take that into account as we're going about and creating the schedule in that. So those CTE classes that are the double periods and that they will be meeting every day, and that will still allow them to meet the number of hours that they need to meet for the certifications and other qualifying things that they that are tied to some of those classes as well. A couple of the other pieces like the band and chorus classes, we understand and value and the importance of the arts and that and those types of classes, but we do realize that band and chorus present other challenges and other exposure and other risks that other classes do not. So we have made the decision that we are going to run those classes, but we also have a form that for any student that is going to partake in those classes, that the student and the family sign off on, that they understand the risks of taking those classes and the challenges that there are within them. So when we look at our band or chorus classes, you know, in chorus with the singing and things like that, they'll still be required to wear masks during the class, but we'll also look to, you know, to expand beyond the 6 feet of distance between students' desks in other classes to go to a greater distance in those areas. The chorus classroom is a bigger classroom than a typical classroom, so they have more space in there. So even though the classes have a greater number than the typical class, when we go to the hybrid and split that to the 50, you know, close to the 50% piece there will be lesser numbers there, so we'll utilize more of the space in there. We'll also look to utilize other areas as well. So if you get a nice day, like today, it's nice, it's sunny out, you know, we'll look to use outdoor space as much as possible for those types of classes. Excuse me, and the same for band. You know, when you're blowing on a wind instrument, you know, that presents a different set of challenges between the wind instrument or the flutes and blowing across instruments and what occurs there. So again, we will look to space more in those classes, use outdoor settings as much as possible for them in the weather that we can use to do that as well. But also make people aware and ask that they sign the form so that they understand everything that we are doing in those particular classes in order for their child to be able to take them. Some other questions about sports and extracurriculars. When we met and made the decision last week, we decided that we are going to run all of our extracurriculars, and that again there is a waiver with the extracurriculars to be able to participate, that all students and families are going to have to sign off on. We looked at it based on the guidance from the governor and the state and the National Federation of High School Sports and the NHIAA. There is the ability in there to be able to offer and to run sports. There are some changes with each individual sport that will occur so that we're minimizing risks and contact and everything with students there. But there are additional exposures and there are additional contacts that do occur with sports. This summer, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, and many other sports have been playing, and students are participating in that. So been watching very closely what's been going on with there and what are some of the different things that they've done, and looking to what are some of the precautions that we would put in with those as well. For sports, the start of fall sports, which would have been about a week away in a typical year, and that has been moved to September 8th. So fall sports, the new start date for that is September 8th. So provided that everything stays on track and that is the start date for fall sports, our tryouts would then occur that week there, and we would go through the process of going through tryouts, teams being made, and then schedules from there. What the fall schedule, you know, work would look like and everything like that won't be the same as in years past. I mean, with the start date being pushed back nearly a month, right off the bat, the number of weeks and dates available for teams to be able to play and participate in games has changed, so that there will be other changes and other things to schedules as well there. So there'll be more information once we know more that we will share with that as we go through it. So just if we play it out and things do work out, and fall sports are able to happen and we're able to play them, athletes will be required to wear masks when they're on the bus, if they're traveling, if they're on their way up to the field for practice, to on the sidelines, things like that. When they're actually in competition and they're on the fields and things like that, then the mask can be a hindrance, and that will not be required at that point in time. But if they choose to, then that is something that they can do. But like I said, there are other recommendations and requirements for that as well. The other part that I do want to say that if you read through our document, large gatherings are still not able to happen. So like, our fall pep rally at this point in time is not something that we would be able to do. Full class gathering of all the class in one location is not something that we would be able to do. So on those first 2 days, even though we're only bringing the freshman class or senior class back one time, we would not be gathering all of them together in one location. So if we do get to the point where we are able to run fall sports, have the fall play and things like that, attendance at the games for fans will be very limited. We will not be able to open the doors and let everyone in. So that Friday night football game that had several thousand people on it will not be able to have several thousand people at it. A full house for the fall play, 900 people in the Stockbridge Theater to watch it will not occur. There'll be severe limitations as far as the number of people that are there, but what we have looked at and have the ability to do is to live stream our events. So if we are running events like that and we are not able to open it up for anyone to come, we will also then be looking to live stream them, so that way people that are not able to physically be there in attendance, they will have the ability to watch the game or the event remotely. And we do understand that would be disappointing for whether it's family members or friends to be able to watch their child or their niece, their nephew, or other family member or friend be able to participate. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at those events, we're looking to make sure that we're doing it as safe as possible for everyone, in following the guidance and recommendation that we've received with that. So one of the questions was, is Plaque going to happen? I don't know. I don't know what the status is of Plaque. All of it will depend upon whether or not we will, fall sports will actually fully be able to run, and if we do run it, in that when we get to the back weekend competition, when we're playing the games, what are able for the number of people being able to go and to watch the games physically in person, and that we don't know. But as with everything that we have, we did last spring, we looked at alternatives and different ways to be able to offer and do things. We will continue to look at other options and different things for events such as that. Another question was about a student's remote day. Can they come to campus for sports or activities? So yes. So if they're starting off in this hybrid here, if we get to the point where we're in the middle of September, we're still in the hybrid, and it's cohort Tuesday to be on campus, but I'm a cohort 1 student. Once school is out and that event or activity is going to occur, and that child would be able to come to campus for that. A couple other things just in closing about busing. Is it happening? Yes. As soon as we get more information from the sending towns with the busing information, we will post that on our website, and we'll share that with you as well. And we'll do the same thing about late buses and whether they'll be available and whether they'll not be running or not. So we're up against the 1 hour mark for going through this and that, and I hope that we've gone through and answered the many questions. And I know there's been some other questions that have been asked in the chat here, and we'll go through and mark those questions and take them and look to see anything that we haven't answered to be able to put together in a FAQ type list sheet and share it with you, so that way everyone has as much information as possible with this as we go into it. I do appreciate you taking the time and to asking the questions and listening to me talk about them and that, and we will continue to look to do that as we go forward, to find other opportunities, whether it be with another live Q&A chat session like this, or if we have several questions that come in about a particular thing, whether we send out a communication just about it, or if we do a video explaining different aspects of it, we'll look to communicate with you in different ways there. I do want to stress with you before we sign off here that the importance of safety is paramount. We understand that we need to educate our students, and we want to do that in the safest manner possible, and that is going to be at the top of all of the decisions that we make here. So as we go through, we will use safety to dictate and drive decisions and that. But the other part with the plans is that there is flexibility between them. So we do have the flexibility to be able to shift between plans and to go from one to the other. So throughout the year, as the need arises to shift from one to the other, we will do that, and we will look to be able to continue making the shifts in that when appropriate, and communicating all of that with you as to when, where, why, how, all that. So we will do our best with all of that to make sure that we're keeping you informed as we continue to go through. So thank you very much for this year. So if you know of anyone that was not able to tune in and to listen at this point in time, but wants some information later, feel free to be able to share the information that you've heard with them also. But as soon as the recording is available for us here, we will then post the recording and share it with our community as well, so that others can listen in later on as well. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and stay safe.